Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. Hello, everyone. Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Jennifer Vaughn. She is a news anchor and an author based in New Hampshire. How are you doing today, Jennifer?
Hi, Brad. Great to be with you. I'm good. Thank you.
Good. It's awesome to have you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of the show and being a guest on here today.
My total pleasure.
How is your day going so far, your morning?
Morning is bright. It's sunny. All is good so far.
Excellent. It's sunny here too, but it's a little bit on the cool side today.
We have a lot of humidity in New Hampshire today, but that's moving on out. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So you've been a news anchor for years. You've earned several Emmy nominations. You've received multiple awards and honors for your work and been part of some pretty big events in news, presidential debates, interviewing presidents. You've rubbed elbows with some pretty big names. What has that been like for you?
It's been a true privilege to have this little piece of American political history under my belt. Being up here in New Hampshire, of course, every 4 years, the candidates come for the first in the nation presidential primary. Mm-hmm. And the station that I work at, we have real wide open access to them. So whether it's, out on the campaign trail, if they're coming into our studios for a one-on-one interview, we partner oftentimes with network news for internationally broadcast debates. Those are always a pretty big deal, multi-day events. So, it's quite a glimpse into how the campaign system works. The stamina of the presidential candidates always amazes me. Each cycle, it seems to get even more demanding for them. And the time that they take with us is something that I'm very proud of, and we take very seriously up here to make sure that we're asking questions not just on a national scale, but those questions that New Hampshire voters would be particularly concerned about. So When the candidates come here, it's a really great way for them to immerse themselves in sort of that grassroots campaign look. Mm-hmm. New Hampshire's always been a wonderful stomping ground for them to get their feet wet when it comes to how to get hand to hand, shaking hands, filling a town hall in a high school gym, and really meeting the candidates, one-on-one, coffee shops, dining rooms. That's how it works up here. It's a really unique and interesting process, and I've been super proud to be a part of that for all these years.
Amazing. So how did it feel to receive your first Emmy nomination? Do you remember that moment you heard, and where were you when you were nominated? Do you remember?
Probably in my newsroom. I don't even remember it specifically. I've been honored with multiple Emmy nominations, and when they come into our newsroom, it's a proud moment for everybody, and we're all alerted at the same time. So it's a chance for all of us to sort of step back and congratulate each other, because, in a newsroom, we all know exactly what it takes to put one of these stories together, and the time and the attention and the care that we work together with our photographers, with our producers, with our assignment editors, our news directors. So it's really always been I'm so proud of you type of thing when these nominations come down. It's a cause of celebration for all of us when any of us are nominated and or we win. So it's really a grand event to recognize everybody's talent who's around me, because, that makes me feel better and special and honored to be a part of the newsroom in which they're working. So it's always a great event for everybody, no matter who's nominated every year and no matter what stories are nominated. It always feels great as a newsroom to accept that honor.
It's truly a team effort. I mean, you guys all work together on your stories. It takes a village, as they say, right?
It takes more than that. Because, it might be me on the anchor desk, but a reporter feeding me the information to then bring the story to the viewers. So the work is going on, even if you're not seeing it. Mm-hmm. The videographers who are out on the scene will, edit together very quickly at times to get those images back so we can broadcast them live. So I can't do my job if they're not out there doing theirs.
Right.
And then even further behind the scenes, you talk about somebody who's manning the phone and taking in all emails at all times, and doing checks with our local fire and police departments to make sure that we know everything that's going on. And if without them, we wouldn't know when news breaks. So the newsroom functions in totality, but it starts to break down if not everybody does their job when they need to, how they need to. So if certain levers aren't pulled, it won't go out to the viewers in the right way. So it truly is a village, all hands on deck at all times.
Awesome. It's got to feel good to be part of a team. And when a story gets completed, it's everybody's part, everybody's integral to the story. Everybody matters. No one person is more important than the other.
No, in fact, in my newsroom in particular, it's wonderful when, say a reporter gets a wonderful interview and it's all you can think about that night. Every single one of us in passing, when we see that reporter and videographer who was out in the field with him or her, we stop and talk to them and say, oh, that was so great. You did such a great job. And that's a wonderful byproduct of being in a supportive type of environment in which, I work, because I've been really lucky to be there and enjoy that. We're all friends. We all support each other. If I'm not covering a story, but I know someone else can, they're going to do just as good of a job as I would have expected out of myself. So in that respect, we're all super supportive of each other. And, we stop and take the time to say, hey, you did that really, really well. That looked awesome.
Love that. That's amazing. So what would you say then for you is the most exciting or your favorite part about being a news anchor?
I think I love what I do for so many reasons, but each night, when they're counting us down to the top of the show and, everybody's in place and the video will roll, or you have really important breaking news to get out to viewers. It's that sort of rush of attention and adrenaline, and, you call upon yourself to be your very best in that moment, and, to present everything as you would expect to see it if you were at home being the viewer. So never letting up on that, I think, remains my favorite part, because it challenges me every day. You might approach your workday, and no matter what sector you're in, you're a little tired. Maybe you have a headache that day, or the day just wore you out for 100 different reasons. But calling that up, that feeling of responsibility for the newscast that I'm anchoring, it never wavers, no matter what kind of day I've had. So it brings a sense of pride in myself that I can commit to that every night. And then I leave the desk feeling no matter what happened over the course of the show, I brought my 100% to it. Yeah.
How did you get into the whole world of news and media and being part of television? How and why? Why did you decide to get into TV?
I think I had a clear understanding of what I was good at and what I fell short in. And I think knowing that can really help you sort of step out onto your journey with a sure foot. And I say that because I don't want to ever suggest that somebody doesn't explore all kinds of things that they have an interest in. But in my case, I knew that I had a stronger sense of writing and I could visually see things fairly well than I did math and science. So I thought, why not seek out an industry, a business, a career in which I can shine and my best tools can give me my best work and I'll feel comfortable. So right away, I would say around junior high school, I started really looking into my local newscasters. I would write to them. I would ask them questions about their career, their position, how they got there, what was their course. And I decided in college, I switched my major a few times, and I did end up graduating with an English degree, but I think that you can cross borders no matter what you do, with no matter what degree you have, particularly when it comes to English and writing and creative arts. So I just followed what I thought I could do best, and I gave it a shot, and it was a lot of hard work.
I'm sure.
When you get into this business, you do it with the understanding of sacrificing a good chunk of your early years in terms of building your resume, building your experience, working very hard to understand the skills, sharpen the skills that you'll need. A lot of people travel to various markets. They start in small markets across the country and they move up to larger markets. And that's how it works. So you do need to be dedicated to that understanding that it's probably going to run you ragged for a few years. But I wouldn't shift lanes now, if you told me I had to, because I think it was a good fit for me. And it's been a wonderful way to see different kinds of experiences, to open my eyes to others' experiences, to elicit a response in viewers with words and visuals. And that's really a gift, to be able to do that for somebody else, to share their story on a platform that, gains them attention, or, they get either the justice or the notoriety that they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I mean, the fact that you started writing to news anchors when you're in junior high school, like you knew back then that that's the path you wanted to take. That's pretty incredible, because a lot of people go through life and even get into their 20s and 30s and still don't know what they want to do sometimes.
I agree. And sometimes people switch in midlife, or, they give themselves a shot at something they've always wanted to try, and hey, now's a good time and I'm just going to try it. And that's wonderful too. I think we're all built in different ways. I've talked to many physicians in this world who say, I've always known. I knew from the time I was young. I've talked to a lot of singers or performers, and, they strike me as a particularly savvy group of intuitive souls who know almost from birth how to use their talent, and they take it all the way. So I was among the lucky ones that had a good sense of what I thought I wanted to do, and jumped right into it.
It's amazing. So when you first got into the world of television, did you face any adversity being a woman in that world? And if so, how did you deal with that?
I think everybody who gets into this industry faces some type of aversion, whether it be, learning something from scratch. I was treated, when I first got into this business, the same as my male colleagues were as reporters and anchors. And when I say that, when I first started, I learned how to do everything. So I would go to town council meetings. I would go to car accidents. I would go to the beach with my camera in hand. I would learn how to shoot. I would learn how to, balance my camera on a tripod and interview somebody. And then I would bring it back to the newsroom. I learned how to edit my stories together. And then later I would anchor the show.
Wow.
So I was doing the same exact things right alongside my male colleagues. So in that respect, no, we were treated the exact same. Expectations were the same, and we were given the same tools. And how we learned to use them, that was up to us.
Right.
How deeply we wanted to get into the knowledge of how to use them, how creative we wanted to get. That was ours to explore. But we were the exact same. I think when you broaden that out a little bit and you talk about women in the industry, sure, I can say some of the common thought adversities that people would think about had happened. Sure. Yeah. I always found a workaround. I always found a way to stay focused on my work and never let that compromise me. So in other words, I'm very tedious with my work approach. I'm in early, I stay late, I'm there when they need me. So I don't really give anybody a reason to go looking for a complicating factor with me. I've always tried to really live and work that way. So if there ever is a complicating factor, I know it's not based on my work. And if it's a fair one, I'll listen, absolutely, because we always should listen if there's a strong critique that would make us better. If it's from left field, then I always find a workaround.
I think that's incredible that you learned all aspects of the business, editing, shooting, all of it, and anchoring, and to make yourself more well-rounded. It's pretty incredible and admirable.
Even to this day, when we're out on the floor and we have camera operators and we have, associate producers, and I've played all of those roles. So I know what they're doing when they truck a camera across the studio floor, and I know what they're doing when they're zooming in, and I know how they're angling a shot, and I know how the lighting has to work, and I know how the producer is blocking her show. I know how she's timing it out. So all of those things just help me understand the parameters of their jobs, because, we all have to work together. My job feeds into theirs, feeds into mine. Yeah. So it really just gives you a better understanding of the depths of the newsroom. And, it helps you understand too, if somebody's having a rough day, you know why that producer is having a rough day. Breaking news came in 3 minutes before the show started. She had to rearrange her entire show. And I know what that feels like because I've had to do it too.
Right. Gives you a better understanding of everything going on.
Definitely.
So what was it like for you when you did your first presidential interview, and who was it with?
So this was sort of an interview by default that I never expected to have. And it was long before I was in TV.
Okay.
I had secured an internship at a Rhode Island AM news station. This was a radio station, and I loved it, and they were wonderful to me, and in fact kind of threw me out to the sharks, as it were, and suggested that I try to go cover the arrival of President Bill Clinton, who was visiting Rhode Island for an event. So I said, absolutely. So even from, getting in my car and trying to find my way to the state capitol when roads were blocked off and Secret Service was out and, detouring cars here and there and figuring out, okay, how do I get in? So that it was a challenge from start to finish. And then I didn't know if I would get anywhere near him. Of course, I assumed no. So whenever there's an event with a dignitary, particularly a president, there's a roped off area where all of the media has to be. And that's usually radio and TV, and the photographers are behind you. And then, the print reporters are there too. Mm-hmm. And when you're lucky, the candidate, the president will come over and talk to you. And you don't know if they're going to stop where you are or 50 feet down the rope line where somebody else is. So that day I was standing next to Andrea Mitchell from NBC News. Mm-hmm. And I assumed, if the president was going to stop for anybody, it would be her.
Right.
And I had the shock of a lifetime when he actually stopped for me. And,
incredible.
Yep. And answered one or two questions. I don't remember what they were. And somehow I asked the questions, and I did hit play record on my recorder. and I successfully transported his sound bites back to the newsroom. And everybody looked at me with their jaws on the floor that had just happened, including me.
I'm sure. That must have felt incredible, though, and I'm sure the nerves were just through the roof, too.
Yeah, but it just feeds that exhilaration of, a job well done. And wow, that really worked out. And believe me, there have been plenty of others that have not worked out, and the interview did not go very well. So it does balance out.
So speaking of interviewing, you've been interviewed yourself many, many times. What's it like for you being on the other side of the microphone or the camera? And do you have a preference as to which side you'd rather be on?
I like to have conversations with people that I direct.
Okay. You like to be in control.
Yeah. So being on the receiving end of questions feels a little odd for me. However, I do my best to navigate those, because in doing that, I can share the many stories of other people who have impacted my life, and whether that be in TV news and, how I made my way in my career, how I transitioned to writing books and how I talk about those and the people I've interviewed to get my stories straight. So I definitely prefer asking the questions because I'm genuinely interested in somebody's story. Yeah. I have tried to get better on the receiving end of questions and deliver answers that are impactful, that you would think, oh, wow, I never knew that. Or, that's interesting. So I that's really, for me, still a work in progress.
Well, you're doing pretty good here on the receiving end of the questions. So it's great to be here chatting with you and have you in this position where you don't normally or feel as comfortable. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
Now, you're an author. You wrote your first book in 2011. It was called Last Flight Out, which happened to be featured in the swag bags at the Daytime Emmy Awards. That's got to be a huge, huge feather in your cap. How did that all come about? And can you tell us a bit about the book and the experience of having your book featured in the swag bags?
So that was what you would call unexpected fun. Okay. A very random good time that you could never see coming. Mm-hmm. So Last Flight Out was my first book, and it actually is sort of a mishmash of things that I've experienced in my life. And like far too many people out there, cancer has directly impacted my family, and I wanted there to have a bit of that mixed in. Politics have directly impacted my career. And I've gotten to know the inner workings of a candidate's campaign, the inner workings of a politician, And I wanted to wrap that around a family crisis and have it do good in the world. So Last Fight Out released, did well, and all of the proceeds I donated to cancer charities in the state.
It's amazing.
So that was sort of the feel-good approach to my first go-around with writing the book. So perhaps with some press that I got, word eventually reached the organization that puts together really interesting products and books and things that might appeal to celebrities at the Daytime Emmy Awards who come through and gather their swag. So it was held at the Beverly Hilton. It was a ton of fun. At the time, my daughter was 12, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I took her and my mom, and out we went to LA, and I had boxes of my books. And one by one, the celebrities came through, and we shared some time chatting about my book and why I was donating to cancer charities. A few of them even donated on their own, which was wonderful and unexpected. And off they would go with my book.
Wow.
We'd take a few pictures, we'd have a few laughs, and it was just a fun experience. And that was something, I mean, you know, given what I do, I never say never, because we have, you know, opportunities to meet people and see people in places and things that you really can't imagine on a day-to-day basis because it's constantly changing. That one was a, how is this happening type of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we have a lot of good memories of that. It was a total riot. There was one time we were out by the pool having some lunch before we went back in and dealt more with, you know, handing out the books.
Right.
And my mom stopped eating cold, and she looked up and she said, "There's Ozzy Osbourne." And sure enough, walking across the patio was Ozzy Osbourne, dressed completely in black with about 3 Secret Service type, you know, protectors, celebrity protectors around him, flanking him.
Wow.
And then about 50 feet behind him was Sharon, who had been in the spa getting herself done.
Yeah.
So there were just a lot of remarkable sights and scenes. And, you know, as an East Coaster my whole life, it's always a thrill to go out to the West Coast and just see how differently they do things out there.
It's got to be quite the memories for your daughter as well, being there and taking all that in.
Yeah, this was a funny story too. There was a young girl there, and she was from Canada, and she had appeared on the Canadian version of Shark Tank.
Okay.
And she had toeless socks that she had invented that you could wear flip-flops with, but still keep your feet warm. So she and my daughter hit it off, and they had a good time. And I think at one point, you know, we cut loose and just let them swim for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was just, again, just a what is happening type of event. I'm just so glad I got to do something like that. It's so out of the norm for me.
Pretty incredible, I must say. Now, you've written 5 books. Your latest release is called The Shadow Kid, and it's an award-winning book. Can you tell us a bit about that book?
So Shadow Kid was my very first attempt at a biography, basically. I wrote it in first person, so it was basically written as an autobiography of a gentleman that approached me out of the blue, and I think he had a sense of trust with me because he's watched me on TV for years, and we were friends on Facebook through other friends, and you know, on my social media presence is I try to keep it really positive, and when I do have to impart breaking news, I try to keep that separate. And you know, a lot of posts about my flowers and my dog and my kids and, you know, how to smile today and all that kind of stuff. So he reached out knowing that I had several books by then and asked if I would be interested in hearing his story, potentially to turn it into a book. And I said, sure, I'd love to do that. And I do that quite often, actually, because maybe if it's not a book, it could be a news story. Right. So he came to my home and sat with me in my dining room for 3 hours or so and laid out his life story. And it took my breath away at every turn, from the time he was a little boy to how he wound up in the state of New Hampshire, and how things came to him almost like the winds of fate, and completely impacted his life, changed his trajectory over and over again, put him in circumstances beyond anybody's understanding, and how he not only survived, but turned it around, relied on himself to do so, climbed out of the darkness, and made a life for himself. And it was way too extraordinary to pass up. So that night I said I would be honored to write this book. So we worked on it together for about 6 months. We'd go chapter by chapter. He'd sort of present to me almost a syllabus of sorts in which he would break down the topics of his life. And we went sort of chronologically, starting with him as a little boy.
Yeah.
And I would ask for pieces of evidence, because this needed to be proven to me.
Right. Yeah.
In order to write this, as somebody's life story, I had to know that it was true. So he would bring to me irrefutable pieces of evidence that would show this happened then, pictures, memorabilia, mementos, things that proved his story. And it just, we flew through it together. And that book is very special to me, but it's special in so many ways because it's the story of resilience. It's the story of fighting to get through one dark chapter after a next, while at the same time highlighting your gifts and exploring generosity and, becoming better at every turn and never giving in to the dark pull of what doesn't have to be inevitable. And he is sort of the living personification of all of that. And to this day, we talk weekly.
Amazing.
He's become a friend, a mentor. I love him dearly. And his story is one to cherish from start to finish. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry at times. And it will bring you that, resounding sense of vulnerability. And yet you're more formidable than you ever thought you could be if only you believe. So yeah, it's quite the story.
We'll definitely have to check that out. That sounds incredibly interesting. I'll have to find that book and give it a read for sure.
Thank you. I'd love that.
Why did you decide to make the jump into becoming an author?
That is, I think, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but that felt like a natural leap. Day to day in TV news, you write to video. I'm a lifelong reader from the time I was very little, from picture books to chapter books. And then, from about age 9, 10, and 11, I would grab off the nightstand whatever my mom was reading. And that was all kinds of colorful things. But I always had that vivid mind, imagination ability to see what I was reading. So the characters came to life for me in my own mind. So that happens in news clearly on a more, dimensional level, because you can actually see what we're talking about visually speaking. But I wanted to bring that into my own stories. So in experience with news, I've gotten a lot of, inner knowledge from, say, investigations or, say, politics.
Right.
The inner workings of family dynamics. And I wanted to translate that into a story of my own, and better yet, a story that I could control. So it's a real powerful feeling as a writer to be able to, seek justice for the character of your choice, and to seek, all kinds of endings that you craft on your own. And in the news business, I have zero control over how a story ends. But when I write books, I'm 100% in control of what happens to every character I create. And that's a really great feeling. I am still stickler for a happy ending, I admit. It doesn't sit well with me to end a book giving somebody an ambiguous ending or something that makes them feel unsettled. I admit that. And other people, that's their forte, and they do it so well. But for me, I try to wrap up the loose ends so that everybody can put the book down, close it, and say, okay, I get it. I get why that happened to that person. I get why that happened to that person. Wow, that was a twist, but I understand it had to happen. So for all of those reasons, that's my control. I can drive the bus. I can grind through the gears, and I love that feeling when you write.
Awesome. So when you do sit down to write, where do you pull your inspiration from when writing?
That's everywhere. So that is definitely from my day job, definitely from TV news, definitely from the political candidates I've interviewed through the years, definitely from their entourages. It's in being a mom and, tapping into the emotions that you get raising kids that are unparalleled to any other emotion in the world, I think. The love the fear, all of that, I feel intimately because I'm raising kids and we're in an imperfect world. To use all of that, it's really not too far below the surface for me as I tap those emotions every day in my family. And then I understand the pull of tragedy or the excitement of a celebration every day in my news job. So that all just fits together. It's, inspiration is everywhere. It could be from the interview that I did that helps me create, a potential other ending. That didn't happen in real life, but I could see it going the other way.
Yeah.
So they're all, I think if you just look around, the sunrise, the sunset, a winter storm, a blizzard, a thunderstorm, it's everywhere. If you can just look beyond what you're seeing and think of colors and words and characters and emotions and personalities, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Now, I know that different authors have different creative processes when they're writing. Can you tell us a bit about your process when you sit down to write a book?
Oh, sure. Mine's probably a little different than most. And I think that's a product of being in a busy newsroom for so many years, because in the newsroom environment, it's a wide open room and you're next to all of your colleagues and you're punching away at your computer and everybody's under the same deadline. Yeah. So there's absolutely no time for writer's block. You have to work through that and you have to produce a product and you have to have it ready to go and there are no excuses. So in that respect, I don't force myself. If I'm sitting at home and when I write books, I do so in my noisy kitchen with my family around and the dog barking. And that's just how it works for me. And I never force it. I think one of the major pitfalls for somebody who wants to write books is you force yourself to sit there and write, which I think it just hampers your creativity too much. So if there's a particular day that I'm just not feeling it, or I've got to be in early, I don't force it at all. And there might be days upon days, a couple weeks might go by before I'll sit down and write another chapter. And that's fine. I never punish myself. I never put pressure on myself because I think that leads you down, what can be a very stressful path. And writing shouldn't be that. It should really be, tapping your brain and your creativity when you're at your perfect flow. So, you don't want to upend that flow by forcing it because then, you get yourself into some tricky situations and then you don't often like what you've written. No, it's just a very different way than probably a lot of people who need quiet and solitude or, behind closed doors or up on the third floor or in their attic and a makeshift desk.
You thrive in chaos.
Yeah.
And I would imagine too, you force it, you're not going to be pleased with with the product you're putting out. It has to just flow out of you naturally, I would imagine, right?
Absolutely. And you have to be open to critiques.
Absolutely.
And that's not an easy part of being a writer either. But I've become masterful at that because in the news business, my first pass at anything is not what airs.
Right.
My first pass gets a second pass, a third pass, a fourth, and even a fifth to make sure that everything is in place, it's accurate, it's timed out correctly before it will ever air. So I'm used to that. And I've never had a problem with criticism. And what I write is not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine too. So I think we get better the more we're open to criticism and the more we're open to understanding, okay, I need to take a second pass at that because that first pass might not be my best. I can do better.
Yeah. As long as the criticism's coming from an honest place and it's not harmful. I mean, we have to be open to criticism and with the things we do and take feedback and use that to make things better, make ourselves better, make whatever piece of work we're working on better.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned good feedback and constructive feedback.
Yes.
And there is a difference because when there's nasty feedback that serves no purpose other than to insult you, and that comes in both books and TV and in every sector of the world, you have to be able to identify that too. And you can't let that ruin you because, that could if you allow it to. So you have to build some confidence in knowing your worth and, building a strong circle around you of people that are going to be honest with you. And, they're not going to criticize you for the sake of taking a shot at you. They're going to do so in terms of their way of helping you get better. So when you surround yourself with people that you trust, that makes that part of it a whole lot easier.
Absolutely. I would have to agree. Now, what would you say is one of the most frustrating things for you about being an author, if there is any for you?
There's definitely one component of being an author and books in general that it sort of goes against everything I've ever been taught with writing from a news perspective, which is, again, we produce a product at the end of every day and there are no excuses and you work through it and you get it done. Now, when your book is ready to hit the world, that's out of your hands and it's a very time-consuming process. So for me, I'm definitely used to the instant gratification of writing as it relates to my news job, because I start a story at the beginning of the day and I end it when I anchor it and it's over and it's done. And I've, from start to finish, it's taken, 10 hours. And when you release a book, it's far different than that. It takes months upon months. You can't control when somebody gets to their part of the release process. And that is the most uncomfortable part for me. And I think it's only because I'm so used to having my story hit on the same day I've written it. So it's like polar opposites. So, writing for news, it's, quick and dirty and fast and it's done. Yeah. And then writing for books is multi-layered. It's cautious. It's slow. It's tedious. So that's the hardest part for me to make peace with. But I've had to. I don't have a choice. That's out of my hands.
Yeah. Now, is there anything you wish you knew then that you now know when you first started out in news or as an author?
That patience. Patience remains an ongoing challenge for me. And again, I have lived in this fast-paced world of turnover and no excuses, and your stuff needs to be ready to air by the end of the day for so long that when I confront that elsewhere in the opposite sense, in which, okay, we'll get to it next week, or, that person's off for a month. And that's a very common thing in the book publishing industry. And there's, again, the layered factor. It's not just one person signing off, it's 20. So I wish that I could go back and tell myself, listen, get better at the art of patience because you're going to need it. You will exercise it often, and don't let it lead to frustration, because then that does nobody any good, particularly me. So that's an ongoing challenge for me. That's always something I try to work on.
Okay. Which authors do you admire? Who are a couple of your favorites?
So going back to when I was a kid, I loved picture books. And there was one book about a horse, and I don't remember the title, but it had the most beautiful images. And I think that cemented my love of books as they connect to images and how I remember them in my mind. And then I remember reading about Paddington and Winnie the Pooh and Black Beauty, and those are some childhood favorites. And then as I matured, and again, revisiting that I would grab whatever my mother was reading from her nightstand, I graduated to Sidney Sheldon and Jackie Collins, and then whatever Harlequin romance she was reading. And that, it broadened my horizons. And I'm sure that there would be some parents out there who would not let their kids at age 10 be reading Jackie Collins. But my mother was open-minded, and, she let me grab whatever I wanted to, because she had thought that, okay, as long as you're reading.
Yes. Yeah.
And
exactly.
I totally agree with her. And then, John Grisham became a favorite. The Firm remains one of my favorite books of all time. It was really one of the first times that I saw how a lawyer could wrap a story around the law. And I thought that was fascinating because it was loaded with mines and pitfalls for a character that you could relate to. That could be anybody. That could be the guy that you went to high school with. And then James Patterson for the mystery aspect of writing. Stephen King has been terrifying me my whole life. And now that I'm a writer, I will venture often into indie author world, and I will just grab somebody I've never heard of. A lot of local authors I'll try to support. And if a local author writes a local story about places that I know and I've been to and that I love, that's even better. So I'll grab anything. I really will. And I love all kinds of different genres. I'm not I'm not particularly married to any one. Kind of depends on your mood.
Yeah.
But I'm always looking for somebody to, catch my eye or make me a new fan. I'll give anybody a try, and I love to support new authors.
Awesome. What do you think is your unique skill set or superpower that's helped you become successful?
I've been able to apply empathy, probably better and deeper than a lot of my news colleagues. And I think because of that ability, I've been able to feel and deepen my well of emotion as I've interviewed other people. And, again, with what I do for a living, it's either the highest of the highs or the lowest of the lows that I'm encountering folks. And, when you're interviewing somebody who has suffered an unimaginable event, you can't help but feel them. And I've been able to really do that through the years where it stays with me. I can remember what their eyes look like. I can remember how a tear fell down their cheek. I can remember how they held somebody's hand to get through the interview. I can remember all of that. So in turn, I can apply that to my stories when I write my books. And it has made me a better reporter. There was one lesson that I learned very early on that helped me understand this. I was sent out on a car accident. It was terrible. A child had died, a dad had died, and a puppy had died. And I went to the scene to get video of the crash and to talk to a police officer and then to return it for that night's newscast. And when I edited everything together, I included a shot of a car seat with blood on it. Oh. And then at the end of the show, my news director took me aside and she said, I need you to understand why you never should have added that shot. And I was like, oh gosh, I thought you would have wanted that shot. It's so dramatic. And she said, no, you don't understand. It's not that we're looking for. Do you think that was the best shot to tell that story? Did you need that? And I'll never forget that moment because I almost felt ashamed of myself, but It was a learning moment for me to understand that I absolutely never needed that shot. It was immaturity, and I needed to learn about why I didn't need that shot. So from that point on, I've applied that to how I do my interviews, and I've learned how to apply that to how I develop my characters, my conflicts, and resolutions.
Amazing. What a learning experience. Wow.
In a hard way.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because I took a hard look at myself, and even all these years later, I never forget what I felt like when she talked to me about that and how awful I felt and how that changed how I conducted myself when I moved on in my career.
But at least you took that advice to heart and made the change that was necessary.
I did.
So what profession other than the one you are currently in would you like to attempt in life?
I love photography. I am the master of the auto settings. I would love to learn more about how to actually use my camera because I have developed a fairly good eye with how I see things. Yeah. And once I can download everything and edit them, they're brilliant. But I want to be able to capture that by using all of the power of my camera. So when I have time, and it's not often, but I try to get out there and fiddle around, and then I become frustrated with myself because I don't know it, and I don't want to miss the opportunity for a good shot on my auto settings. So that is definitely something that I would like to morph into a little bit later when I have the time to do it the right way and finally sit down and learn. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's go down a not so serious path. I'll ask you a few questions that are a little more on a personal side, get to know a little bit more about Jennifer away from the news desk. Sure. What sound or noise do you love?
I love the birds.
Birds?
Yep, I love the birds. It makes me feel like there's energy all around me, and when they're chirping, and especially if they're chirping and they're outside by my wind chime, I feel peace.
Beautiful. What is one of your favorite words?
Oh gosh.
I'm sure you have a ton being a wordsmith.
Oh goodness. Well, I have a lot of not so wonderful words that I like to throw out every now and again. And I do use them when I write, when I have to. And I certainly hear them in the newsroom all the time. But maybe one of my favorite words would be cool. I say that a lot. I say that a lot. And it's not even that's cool or it's cool. I just go, cool.
Okay, what is one of your favorite curse words? One of those words you hear around the newsroom all the time.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, you know the ones.
All right.
You know the ones. Picture those, and sometimes they get doubled up. Yeah, so everything and anything you can think of, and that's
all of them.
You
like them all equally.
I do. I think more of some of them are more potent than others.
Yes.
But yeah.
What is a passion of yours that you rarely share with people, and why not?
Oh, I love animals. I oftentimes think I would love to live on a farm, and I would love to rescue a ton of animals and just let them live out their days happy and peaceful and calm, and let the horses run in my yard and do what I can. They're so innocent and they're so special and sweet, and I don't have enough time with them. But at my core, I never not stop to pet a dog.
Yeah.
We never not stop to look at a field of horses. And I just, I've always felt a special connection to them. I've always been really in love with animals, and felt like a calling, I can almost hear them. And that has remained my whole life. And my children both have it. And I wish I could have more. I wish I could have more all around me. A donkey, a few horses, several dogs. I'm allergic to cats, but if I had a barn, I would let them be barn cats.
Yeah.
All kinds. Yeah.
You can't just walk by a dog and not pet them. It's impossible. I can't either. It's impossible.
I can't.
Can you share a situation that's occurred in your life that you feel provides insight as to your character, who you are?
Well, this is something I never tell anybody. And it's the first thing that came into my mind. But every year, my family and I, we select a family who might be down on their luck, and we bring Christmas to them. And I don't tell anybody. It's not through any particular charity. It's something I do on my own. Yeah. It might be somebody that I know. It might be somebody that I've heard of through somebody that I know. And we do it up. We do it big. And
that's awesome.
We deliver everything that they would need, and it makes me feel good. And in turn, my kids look forward to that every year. And now they're almost 21 and 18. Yeah. And it just is. It's become a tradition, and nobody ever knows. Nobody ever knows. And oftentimes I've done it without even the recipients knowing, just to make sure that that day comes alive for them.
I think that's incredible. It's incredibly selfless, and I think we need more of that in the world today, especially now.
Especially now. And I don't want it blasted out on social media. I don't take pictures. No. And I think we need more of that. Just somebody digging in and figuring out, okay, I can make maybe a small difference in a big way. Yeah. And this is how I'm going to do it. And then you just go out and do it.
Yeah, there's no need to pat yourself on the back for it or announce that you're doing it. It's just you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart, and that's it. Not expecting anything, not expecting kudos. You just do it because that's who you are. I love that.
But those smiles, that makes my whole day, my whole holiday.
I'm sure it does. What would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice that I have ever received. This goes, I think, to the core of who we all are, which is be proud of what you do every day. And if there's something that you could do differently, do it differently the next day. And this was a rough and tumble news person that I heard this from. And one of my very early mentors who taught me everything from how to use your voice correctly, how to write a story correctly, and then impart that really important advice where, okay, you might have screwed up today, but if you screwed up and it was an honest mistake, be proud of that. Learn from that. Do it better the next time. But don't let yourself go to bed feeling that you've done something wrong. And if you do, fix it the next day. So I've tried to live by that. If there was something that I could have done better, or I go to bed thinking, oh, that just doesn't sit right with me, then it's on my mind from the moment I wake up the next day, and I try to figure out somehow, some way to never do it again or to fix what I've done.
I love it. That's very wise words for sure. What does the word empowerment mean to you?
Empowerment to me means personal responsibility. I've tried to teach my kids, and I've tried to go about life myself by relying first on myself, trusting myself, trusting my instincts, trusting my gut. And you develop your gut through experience, and through experience of doing it right and doing it wrong, encountering right and encountering wrong. And that helps build your gut. So when you approach a situation, you do it with empowerment, and that's built upon your personal experience, and your personal experience feeds how you conduct yourself. So that's what I perceive that word to be. Help when you can, but do for yourself when you can, and be self-reliant and be self-confident. Know that you can go out there in this world, and when you do things the right way, and when you work hard, and when you bring your best to it, chances are you will succeed. And if you didn't succeed that time, you now have the inner fortitude to try it again.
I love it. What would you say is one of your favorite quotes?
One of my favorite quotes. It's not something you would have heard before, but
okay.
Many years ago, I lost my grandfather many years ago, but he was very special to me, and he was a pilot, and he was one of the very first pilots ever for Delta Airlines.
Wow.
And he was a funny guy, and he used to make these art pieces that would have a couple of words sort of almost grafted together or melted together, and he would make them out of old railroad iron spokes. So he made one that eventually ended up with me that says simply, "This is a happy home." And I have it on the wall in my basement that you turn to face when you walk up into my house.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I walk by it, I stop and read it, and I think of him. So that's my favorite saying that I have in my home, and it's unique, and it's from him.
And it holds a very special place in your heart.
He does.
Awesome. What would you say is one of the most important things you've learned in your life? What was your life like before learning it, and what was it like after learning it?
I think that comes down to having an understanding for somebody else's situation or pain or circumstance. And I became much more aware of that when I became a mom, because when you become a parent, at least for me, it opens up a whole new layer of emotions and feelings that you never knew you had until you start exercising them all the time. So when you're out there fighting for the best for your child, you start to understand why you're doing that. And then you look out at all the other moms and dads or aunts and uncles and grandparents, and you understand, geez, they feel this too. So if they're fighting for something that is completely different for what I'm fighting for my child, I have to understand that to them, it is the same as what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. So that opened my eyes quite a bit to how to view the world. And if it's not my strife, or if it's not my priority, I have to understand why it's somebody else's.
Right.
And being a parent, I think, really helps you to see that.
Interesting. I like that. Excuse me. If you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I haven't asked you?
I think I would have asked me, are you happy? And I would have said to you, yes, mostly, but not always. And then I think we would have had a good conversation about how that can be most of us at all times and any time, and how we can control a lot of our own happiness by putting ourselves around people that make us happy and places that make us happy. But yet inevitably we confront the world and the circumstances of a particular day or now in our particularly difficult times. You can't always guarantee your happiness. So no and yes, all at the same time. I seek happiness, and I understand why others can't have it. And I understand that it is so important because it is the peace in your soul. And whether that's a place that you go to or a person that you hug or, a particular beach, a particular cloud, it is so important to find it and then to rely on it and to lean on it, because when times get tough, and times have been tough,
Yeah.
we collectively and individually need to seek out those items, people, places that bring us the happiness back, because we need it. We need it so badly.
We do, especially now with all that's going on in the world. It's important that we find happiness. It's a necessity.
Yes.
I love that answer, Jennifer. I love it.
Thank you.
If you had a dinner party and had to invite a musician, a politician, a famous couple, and a family member, who would you invite?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so family member would be my grandmother, who I never met. She passed away before I was ever born, but her name is my middle name, which is Lydia.
Okay.
So she would be my family member.
Mm-hmm.
The politician I would like to invite would be JFK, because he's one of the politicians I've never met. I would like the chance to talk to him. The couple. Let's see. I don't want to go celebrity, but I think you almost have to go celebrity because they can probably lighten up the world a little bit.
Yeah.
So let me go back a little bit. You know the couple that I would like to bring? Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston when they were a couple.
Okay.
How about that one?
There you go. That's digging down deep.
And now who am I missing?
A musician.
A musician. Elton John.
He's awesome. I love his stuff.
Awesome. Elton John is happy. He's mellow. He's everything in between. He's funky. He's a rock star. He's a performer. I watched the movie of his life recently and was flabbergasted by his life story. And my goodness, if I ever had the chance to write another life story, I would. Elton John, if you're listening, I'm wide open, ready to go.
I love it.
So I think that would be quite the party.
No kidding. That would be a great dinner party. Incredible conversation, I'm sure. If you were guaranteed the correct answer to one question in life, what would you ask?
One question in life, I would ask why great people are taken too early from this earth.
I like that one. That's a good one.
Why does it happen? Why did they need to go? And what purpose did it serve? Because in so many cases, it has upended somebody's life.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. So that big question of help me make sense of why that happened.
Interesting. I like that one. To what extent do you think we shape our own destiny, and how much is up to fate?
That's I love that question because of the book Shadow Kid. And I liken the story of this person to a bit of a darker Forrest Gump. And, if you can think of the very beginning scene, there's a feather that's floating upon the wind and it's getting blown up and down and sideways and all around. And his life is very much like that. Certainly there are events and there are incidents and there are unprovoked activities that lead a person down a particular road or path or turn, but it doesn't control everything. And for what you can control, you have to be responsible for. But then again, it could be the innocence of your age. It could be the immaturity of your moment. So I love that question because it's so open-ended, and from the perspective of you can only control what you can control.
Yeah.
You can never make sense of why that happened. You can never make sense of, oh my gosh, if I'd only left 10 minutes earlier, if I had stayed 10 minutes longer, if I had never gone down to that restaurant, I never would have met the love of my life. If I had never opened a book, I would never become a writer. So it's I love that because you can't answer it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we could open-ended talk about that forever.
I think so.
And it's just, you could go down a big, huge wormhole in your head that I don't think you'll ever find an answer for, because it's like the universe. It's mysterious, and fate. Fate is a funny thing, and it can be so kind, and it can be the cruelest, type of storm that blows through. But we're all subject to it, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, that conversation, we could go off on a whole tangent.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's right. Maybe we'll have to do that. I would like to do that. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Don't think this is the end. There have been a few dark chapters, as there have been for everybody. Something has happened, something you weren't expecting, something you weren't prepared for, something you never asked for, something you never deserved. And in those moments when you feel like you're drowning, or you feel like there's no way I can get out of this, this will kill me, this will harm me, this will change everything, just know that it won't, it didn't, it hasn't, and you'll be okay. And that's a hard one, because at every turn, much like the fate question we just sort of bantered about, you never know what's coming down the pike.
Yeah.
So I would have a conversation with myself that, look, there's going to be some rain. There's going to be some sun showers when you think it's okay. It might get dark again, but just keep moving.
Love it. Lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like?
This is such a difficult time for that question to be answered, because what I would want to do for everybody right now is almost to bring them into a big, giant, worldly hug and let everybody release their pain, be a shoulder for somebody to cry upon, be a heart to open for somebody's story, to listen to why they're in their circumstance at that moment in this time, why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And in turn, I would almost deliver them back to the answer I just gave you, which is there will always be dark times, and there will always be uncertainty, and you will be the feather on the winds of fate more often than you want to be, but you have to keep moving forward.
Love it. You will be a feather on the winds of fate. I love that. That's amazing. It's poetic. It's beautiful. It's so truthful. And all of that is needed right now with everything that's going on. I think it's too bad we can't just have a big, huge group world hug and just help each other through all of this. But we will get through. And I mean, we have to see the silver linings and things, like with the COVID thing. We have to see the silver lining that people are getting to spend more time with their family. The skies are finally blue in LA, and there's so many different things, and we have to try and find the silver lining in this stuff.
You have to remind yourself to look, and that can be the hardest part. You have to remind yourself to get up, to look, to find it, and then to remember it, because like those memories, like those touch points that bring about your happiness, you have to store them. You have to store them inside of you for when you really need them, and they might not be readily accessible.
That's right. Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time to chat and share your insights, share a bit of your story and your journey, and a bit about your career and everything. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show and chatting with you, and I would love to have you back at some point.
You call me anytime, Brad. This was my joy entirely. It was a great time, and I appreciate it very much.
And you did very well being on the other end of the microphone.
Thank you. Yeah, still a work in progress, remember. I'm getting better.
You rocked it. You did well. Don't worry. Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of the Empowerography Podcast. My guest today has been Jennifer Vaughn. She's a news anchor and author based in New Hampshire. Thanks, Jennifer. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at viseuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.